Despite pre-tax profits of £156 million for British Airways in the first quarter of the new financial year, costs are still rising faster than revenue.
With the report on the first wave of Sprint now just a fortnight away, we've an update on the review of support activities and the overall margin improvement programme.
And we look ahead to the airline's biggest brand's challenge yet, the relaunch of economy. But first, the financial results for the first quarter. The £156 million profit for the 3 months to June 30th shows a 62.5% rise on a year ago, but this is largely the result of a number of exceptional factors. Airline turnover was £1,302 million, up 14.3%, but costs were up by 16.3%, and that has meant a slight fall in airline operating results. These results compound this old problem of mixed messages. Good first quarter results on top of record profits for last year. We've got record loads on the aircraft, the terminals are bursting at the seams, and yet we're taking radical steps to tighten our belts. It's difficult for managers to explain that, isn't it?
It is difficult, and I well understand it, but of course we have to look behind the results that we are reporting. We see there very substantial gains on the sale of older aircraft and on the sale leaseback of 10 737s. And of course you saw some of that in our results in our last financial year as well. On top of that, we have the benefit from the reduced employers' contribution into the pension fund. We also have benefits from a new look at the depreciation that we're taking on our older aircraft. All of these have been beneficial to the result. And when you strip these out, then you really look at the hard reality, which indicates that our results are not improving by anything like the level that they need to in order to secure our future. So this is why we're concentrating so heavily on addressing the whole issue of costs.
The need for this concentration on costs is all the more apparent if you look back over the past 5 years. Taking 1985 to 86 as a baseline, the airline's revenue has grown since then by a healthy 58%. However, costs have risen even faster. Operating expenses, excluding fuel, have escalated by 71%, only offset by a slight overall decrease in the fuel bill. But with fuel prices dictated by the world market and currency fluctuations, last year's bill actually rose by 30%. And following last month's OPEC meeting and more recent events in the Middle East, the outlook isn't rosy. The overall effect of these trends has been a 7% rise in our unit costs per ATK over the past 5 years. That might appear a modest increase, but it doesn't compare well with some of our key competitors. For example, American Airlines costs per ATK rose by only 2% over the same period, while Singapore Airlines actually fell by 13% and KLM's were down by 16%. British Airways' latest figures only reinforce the point, but measures are in hand to combat the problem. What happens if we fail to achieve the required savings through the margin improvement programme?
We would see declining profits, declining cash flow, and inability to fund not only the growth of the future, but also the replacement asset program, the acquisition of more aircraft, replacing some of the older ones in our fleet, and therefore the whole company in effect going into decline.
In this scenario, Sir Colin, do you feel that cost control has overtaken customer service as our #1 priority?
I hope it hasn't, because customer service is the be-all and end-all of this business. While we are capable, and have proven ourselves so, of delivering a high level of customer service, the one thing that we are not is consistent in that delivery. And that's what we have to have as our ultimate target. So the issue of cost control must always be subordinate to the delivery of customer service. The
profit-sharing scheme is continuing into the current financial year, the board has confirmed. This year's trigger is £185 million pre-tax, with a week's pay for every £80 million over that threshold. And the scheme's guaranteed UK minimum weekly wage is raised to £220. Surpluses on any disposal of assets are to be excluded from the profit share calculation.
The Sabina deal has been given the go-ahead by the Monopolies and Mergers Commission. However, the plan, in which KLM and British Airways each take a 20% share in the Belgian airline, has still to be approved by the European Commission. August the 20th is the deadline for all the parties to respond to the Commission's request for further information about the deal.
Cardiff has been confirmed as the site for British Airways' new £70 million engineering base. Heavy maintenance of 747s, including 747-400s, will be carried out there from April 1993.
The Cardiff announcement came just 2 weeks before the airline placed its biggest ever aircraft order for another 21 747-400s, with options on a further 12, together worth £4 billion. Gatwick has long been thought of as London's leisure airport, all buckets and spades and charter flights. For British Airways, it is the base for its charter airline, Caledonian Airways, but as Gatwick celebrates its 60th anniversary this month, it's witnessing a new development. Its scheduled traffic has overtaken charter and is continuing to grow. The increasingly complex mix of British Airways passengers at the airport and the suitability of its route network have made Gatwick an ideal choice for trials of a completely new idea, a service designed specially for business passengers paying the full economy fare. For the last 6 months, these passengers on Gatwick's busy transatlantic routes to Dallas and Houston have had the benefits of Economy Select, a separate check-in and a separate cabin, with the recognition that they have paid for an extra level of service. So far, it's proved very popular with passenger airport services.
For leisure passengers, we're looking at the whole journey experience, not just the cabin, but the whole package, ranging from how they're going to buy British Airways, where they're going to buy it, how it will be offered to them, what happens to them on the flight, what happens to them down route, the whole lot.
But what about the business passengers in economy?
Well, the business passengers will obviously benefit from the overall upgrade of the cabin, but we're also looking at what other additional features we can offer to them in the longer term through, for instance, the Economy Select trial, which is running at the moment out of Gatwick. It's early days yet, though, and we aren't in a position at this moment in time to make a recommendation as to what we should do longer term. There are a number of very complex issues which have to be evaluated fully before we can do that, such as what should the differential be between the Club World cabin and the economy cabin, and that's something which is quite key in terms of us evaluating what our long-term strategy should be within the business market.
And the airline committed to substantial cost-saving exercises. What is the justification for another major relaunch now?
Well, one of the goals of the company, as you will recall, is to deliver a superior level of service, of customer service, on a good value for money basis. And I think that our economy class product now is not meeting those goals.
We're looking to make some real improvements in terms of our service standards and our style, as well as the product improvements which will be introduced. At the end of the day, it will be down to everyone in the airline to make sure that they can offer a real benefit to the customer.